about the significance of sacrifice. And when you are sacrificing to the Supreme Lord, you come into contact with Him at the end of a long period of effort. But now Srivya is going to say that even at a lower level, we can have some spiritual experience of the divine. So one of you has to read the.
Rangada, can you just let me know about the old book, which page it is?
Yeah, old book is 110, 110.
110, okay.
And at the bottom of the page, but he may be known.
I'll read. But he may be known. No? Can I read?
Yes, Sarika.
But he may be known in an inferior action through the devas, the gods, the powers of the divine soul in nature, and in the eternal interaction of these powers and the soul of man, mutually giving and receiving, mutually helping, increasing, raising each other's workings and satisfaction. A commerce in which man rises towards a growing fitness for the supreme good. He recognizes that his life is a part of this divine action in nature and not a thing separate and to be held and pursued for its own sake. He regards his enjoyments and the satisfaction of his desires as the fruit of sacrifice and the gift of the gods in their divine universal workings, and he ceases to pursue them in the false and evil spirit of sinful, egoistic selfishness, as if they were a good to be seized from life by his own unaided strength, without return and without thankfulness. As this spirit increases in him, he subordinates his desires, becomes satisfied with sacrifice as the law of life, and works and is content with whatever remains over from the sacrifice, giving up all the rest freely as an offering in the great and beneficent interchange between his life and the world life. Whoever goes contrary to this law of action and pursues works and enjoyments for his own isolated personal self-interest lives in vain. He misses the true meaning and aim and utility of living and the upward growth of the soul. He is not on the path which leads to the highest good. But the highest only comes when the sacrifice is no longer to the gods, but to the one all-pervading divine established in the sacrifice, of whom the gods are inferior forms and powers. And when he puts away the lower self that desires and enjoys and gives up his personal sense of being the worker to the true executrix of all works, Prakriti, and his personal sense of being the enjoyer to the divine Purusha, the higher and universal self, who is the real enjoyer of the works of Prakriti. In that self, and not in any personal enjoyment, he finds now his soul satisfaction, complete content, pure delight. He has nothing to gain by action or inaction, depends neither on gods nor men for anything, seeks no profit from any, for the self-delight is all sufficient to him, but does works for the sake of the divine only, as a pure sacrifice without attachment or desire. Thus he gains equality and becomes free from the modes of nature, Nistraigunya. His soul takes its poise not in the insecurity of Prakriti, but in the peace of the immutable Brahman, even while his actions continue in the movement of Prakriti. Thus is sacrifice his way of attaining to the highest.
This is the para. And the para is very, very comprehensive. He tells you all. So let us start with when one is doing sacrifice to the gods, what are the grades there? The first is when a human being is not interested in anybody else but himself, the ego consciousness. And there, whatever he is doing he is doing for himself. Okay? This is a normal condition of man. Just when you are almost like at an animal level, you're not even mentally developed, you're just in an animal level almost. Okay? So that you are doing things only for yourself. So spiritually, from the spiritual point of view, he lives in vain. Okay? That is the what the Gita says. He lives in vain. His life has no purpose. He's like a stone. There's no value. The second is those who realize that no, there is an interaction with the world and you have to also give something and receive something. But that also can be done in a very selfish manner. You go to a temple and you put some money in the hundi, but you're always expecting something back again. Okay, so that is the different second grade of or rather the first grade of sacrifice. The first one, no sacrifice at all, only doing for himself. The second one, you are doing some amount of charity work or whatever, and you are giving to the gods, but you are expecting something in return. Okay? Then that's this para that we read today is simply describing that condition. But there is the last one, which is you are sacrificing to the supreme divine, whatever your conception. Okay, you are sacrificing to him, and the final result is that you are absolutely identified with him and you are not at all in any need of anything. Your own condition in the self-delight, as it is. The self is Atma Tripta, is the word used. It is they are absolutely satisfied because when you are in the Atman, you are absolutely in a joyous, peaceful condition, needing nothing at all. So these are the three stages which he is discussing here. So with this background, we'll start reading now what he is saying. In the previous paragraph, he has spoken about also the three levels, the Kshara, the Akshara, and the Purushottama. So the beginning sentence is the middle one, okay? The one who is giving to the gods. Okay? Now there is another thing about the gods. The word gods, you often think of the divine in the highest sense. But the word gods used is not in the highest sense. Okay? They are immortal beings and who live in all the different subtle physical worlds, even beginning from the vital world. Even in the vital world, there are living creatures who are immortal, okay, and they don't have fixed forms, elements, okay, elves, gnomes, and small creatures like that. Okay? Some of them are very mischievous, some of them are very playful, and usually there is no evil in them. But there are asuras in the vital world, and they can be dangerous. Then you come to the mental worlds, and mental worlds also are full of semi-divine creatures. Semi-divine in this sense that they are immortal and they don't have the defects that are available in level 1. There is no ignorance and but there is a limitation. There is no ignorance, but there is a limitation. Then finally you come to the higher planes of consciousness, higher mind, element mind, and all these also are populated by beings. And in the overmind, there are these gods. And they are the ones who have to often fight with the asuras. Okay. Those are the descriptions in the Vedas. And and at the highest level, there is a Purushottam, Purusha Uttama, the highest divine in himself, who is impersonal and personal at the same time. The impersonal planes of consciousness are in level 2, and in level 3, divine is both impersonal as well as personal. Okay, so with this background, we'll start reading now what he's saying. But he may, who is a he? The sadhak. Okay? But he may be known in the he is the divine. Okay, I'm making a mistake. But he may be known in an inferior action through the devas, the gods, the powers of the divine soul in nature. So nature is, as you know, it is level 2. Okay, in the divine soul in nature and in the eternal interaction of these powers and the soul of man, mutually giving, receiving, mutually helping increasing, raising each other's workings and a satisfaction, a commerce in which man rises towards a growing fitness for the supreme good. So this is a training ground for him to go to the highest level. And you must remember that these beings which are there in the higher supra-physical worlds, supra-physical, not necessarily supra-mental or supra-physical, but there's all in the supra-physical world, there's a constant interaction between human beings and these beings which are at the higher level. We all know stories where the apsaras are coming down and disturbing the sadhana of Vishwamitra and all. We even know about Buddha, na? Mara sent his messengers to tempt him. And even Christ had to face those things. Okay? They are the temptations that come. So there is a constant interaction with the supra-physical beings and man. So that's what he's saying. Mutually giving, receiving, mutually helping, increasing, raising each other's workings and satisfaction. You give something, some offerings to the gods, and they give you back some of the powers that are available with them. That's what is being said. You remember the interaction of mother with Ganesh? She had a pact with him, and he was giving her money like anything at one time. But when the war started, that stopped. Okay, I think last time we had the story. So there's a constant interaction. Mother was interacting all the time with these gods. Okay, when there was the Saraswati Puja, Kali Puja, Lakshmi Puja, they used to come down and be with her when she is giving blessings. She says that. Even Krishna used to come down. Okay. So this is what the middleman who is sacrificing to the gods, not to the supreme divine, expecting something back again. Okay, so that is what he's describing here. Raising each other's workings and satisfaction. Satisfaction also is there, remember. But with the interaction with the gods and the human beings. A commerce, note the word commerce. It's a deal. The supreme, when you are giving to the supreme, it's not a commerce anymore. It's a, from your point of view, it's a one-way track. You're not expecting anything. But of course, the divine gives you back 10 times more than you have given him. But that is another matter. But in the second level, where we are discussing, you give but with the intention of receiving. Okay? That's why he uses the word commerce, in which man rises towards a growing fitness for the supreme good. The supreme good, you are giving yourself fully without expectation. He recognizes that his life is a part of this divine action in nature. Okay? So, now when he's talking of he, is the sadhak. The sadhak is, or rather the soul. The sadhak, but the soul. He recognizes that his life is a part of this divine action in nature. So there is I remind you, there are 3 levels. Level 1 at the highest level is the supramental, and it is the Purushottama or the Ishvara consciousness, where God is personal and impersonal. Then at the second level, which is the cosmic, he is there and he is, but hides his personality to a large extent. And if man experiences those level 2, then he recognizes the impersonal aspect of the divine 90% of the time. He recognizes that his life is a part of his divine action in nature. So you are constantly interacting with nature. Without nature, you can't live. Nature is giving you your food. Nature is giving you your house, everything. Okay? So when you recognize that you depend on nature, naturally you have an interaction with them. You give and you receive. And not a thing separate, to be held and pursued for its own sake. This is the man who is at the level 1. Okay? That's what he does. He thinks himself to be separate and doesn't realize that he depends upon the nature. He only takes, he does not give. He regards his enjoyments and the satisfaction of his desires as the fruit of sacrifice. They talk of the second one. Okay? And the gift of the gods in their divine universal workings, and he ceases to pursue them in the false and evil spirit of sinful egoistic selfishness. The false and evil spirit of sinful selfishness is at level 1, which we discussed. Okay, but the one who knows that he is part of the universe, he does not do that selfishly, at least not fully selfishly, and he gives to the gods. So that's a middle one. Okay. False and he is not. As if they were okay, he's describing false and evil spirit of sinful egoistic selfishness, as if they were good to be seized from life by his own unaided strength. This is the description of the lowest level. Without return and without thankfulness. You don't even thank God for what you have got. Okay? But in the middle, you do. You understand that there is a, and we very often think that good fortune, the divine will give you good fortune. Okay. But the ones who are in the middle, if they don't get the good fortune, they report very often. Okay. As the spirit increases in him, okay, as he goes on realizing that he needs more and more of the support from nature, as the spirit increases in him, he subordinates his desires, makes them less and less and less, becomes satisfied with sacrifice as a law of life and works, and is content with whatever remains over from the sacrifice. So you are giving, but what remains you take. Okay. Giving up all the rest freely as an offering in the great and beneficent interchange. So there is this gradation from level 2 to level 1. You are growing and you are giving also more and more and more. There is a gradual. As the spirit increases from wishing, okay, so it's a gradual climb. Whoever goes contrary to this law of action and pursues works and enjoyments for his own isolated personal self-interest lives in vain. There is a number 1, level number 1, where you are just taking and not giving anything. Not only to God, but even to the others. You are only interested in increasing your own wealth and your own position and your own fame and whatever. He misses the true meaning and aim and utility of living and the upward growth of the soul. He misses the upward growth of the soul. He is not on the path which leads to the highest good, the one who is on the lowest level. But the highest only comes when the sacrifice is no longer to the gods, but to the one all-pervading divine established in the sacrifice. So the one from the middle is now slowly realizing that he has to go to the highest level. His sacrifice goes on increasing and his contributions to the divine is increasing. The highest only comes when the sacrifice is no longer to the gods, but to the all-pervading divine, all-pervading, omnipresent divine, established in the sacrifice, of whom the gods are inferior forms and powers. And when he puts away the lower self that desires and enjoys and gives up his personal sense of being the worker, now that's an interesting thing. We have discussed that many times. When you go from level 1 to level 2, the sadhaka realizes that he was not the doer at all of works. It is nature which is working through him. So you realize that you are not the doer of action in the world. You are only the witness. So that's what he's saying here. When he puts away the lower self that desires and enjoys and gives up his personal sense of being the worker to the true executrix of all works, Prakriti. In the physical world, this is something that we can go on repeating endlessly. It is nature that is doing all the work in the universe. Okay? Just know the river is flowing. It's not the river that is deciding to flow. It is nature which is making it flow. The wind is blowing. It is nature which is making it to flow. But now I come to level 2. The plant is growing. Okay? The plant is growing. But the plant doesn't think that I am growing. It is nature that is making it grow. Exactly in the same way, we also when we are born, we are a 7-pound baby and we start growing. And when the mind comes in, you think that you are doing everything. Okay? You feel that you are doing, you are thinking, you are having emotions, you are working, but you are doing nothing of the sort. Your soul is only looking. You are identifying yourself with the body, mind, life, and that's why you are in ignorance. But when you escape from your body, mind, life, the soul escapes and goes up, you realize that you have been doing nothing at all. It is nature which is acting. Just as the nature is acting on the plant and making it grow, nature also is making your mind to have thoughts, making your vital to have emotions, and making your body move. It is universal nature that is doing that. So this is step number one. You realize that you are the non-doer. Okay? He gives up his personal sense of being being the worker. He gives it up to the true executor of all works, Prakriti. Prakriti is the universal nature. And his personal sense of being the enjoyer of the divine, enjoyer to the divine Purusha. Now you realize that it is the divine who is enjoying everything, not you. Okay? The higher and universal self, who is the real enjoyer of the works of Prakriti. So at our level, with our egoistic consciousness, we feel I am enjoying and sometimes I am not enjoying. But it is really the universal divine who is enjoying everything. And like us, there is no non-enjoyment. For him, everything is enjoyment. Okay? So this is what he says. And you give up. You realize that he is the true enjoyer, and then you get the full benefit of your identification with the Supreme. The higher and universal self, who is the real enjoyer of the works of Prakriti. In that self, and not in any personal enjoyment, he finds now his soul satisfaction. What is the Atma Tripta? He is completely satisfied that he has, because instead of looking for objects and foods which pleasant you and clothes which are pleasant to you, you realize that in the divine consciousness you have everything. So you don't need any physical thing anymore. Desire completely vanishes, ego completely vanishes. So in that self, and not in any personal enjoyment, he finds now his soul satisfaction, complete content. As I said, Atma Tripta is the word. You are satisfied with your own condition of self, pure delight. He has nothing to gain by action or inaction. In the physical world, we have to gain something, we have to act. But there you don't have to act, you are not acting. Or inaction. These are all discussions at the yogic levels. Some say that you should act, and some say you should not act. Okay? That's the difference between Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga says don't do any work. And Karma Yoga says do works, but do it as a sacrifice to the divine. So all these things disappear for him who has identified himself with the Supreme. Okay? Without that. So, but then nothing to gain by action or inaction, depends neither on gods nor men for anything, seeks no profit from any, for the self-delight is all sufficient to him. Self-delight. The delight is not coming from outside, it is coming from his own consciousness. All sufficient to him. But does works for the sake of the divine only, as a pure sacrifice, without attachment or desire. Thus, he gains equality and becomes free from the modes of nature, Nistrigunya. Triguna is the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. In fact, what it, in practical terms, it means identification with your body, your vital, and your mind. But now you are not identified with your body, mind, life when you escape to level 2. You are in the spiritual planes of consciousness. You are only the witness, and you are watching, and you are very, very satisfied. His soul takes its poise not in the insecurity of Prakriti. The insecurity of Prakriti is here when you are identified with your body, mind, life. And is there not insecurity? In the physical world, there is fear. Fear of getting injured, fear of getting illness, fear of failing in your business, fear of difficulties of all sorts. Okay? So insecurity of Prakriti. But when you are in the level 2, in the spiritual planes of consciousness, absolutely no question of any insecurity. You are completely at peace and a very soft level of enjoyment, happiness. It may not be a blazing ecstasy like in the higher spiritual planes, but it will be a very calm, quiet acceptance of everything, peaceful. And if there is total peace, obviously there is a little bit of a calm enjoyment. Can't say that there is no enjoyment at all. Okay? But the blazing ecstasy is something else. Okay? That's his soul takes its poise, not in the insecurity of Prakriti, but in the peace of the immutable Brahman. The immutable Brahman, very clearly, level 2, spiritual planes of consciousness. Even while his actions continue in the movement of Prakriti. His body mind life is continuing to act. You are having emotions. You, not you, the body is having. And the mind is having thoughts, but you are standing outside and watching all this drama from above. Thus is sacrifice his way of attaining to the highest. The chapter is the significance of sacrifice. So that's what is discovered. If you do works as a sacrifice to the divine, you do the works for the divine and not for yourself, this is the, you will attain to the highest, the path of karma yoga. Okay? So 25, we have got 10 minutes. We can read the next para. It's
Shall I read?
yes, you can if you have the text. Go ahead.
That this is the sense of the passage is made clear in what follows. By the affirmation of Loka Sangraha as the object of works, of Prakriti as the sole doer of works, and the divine Purusha as the equal upholder, to whom works have to be given up even in their doing. This inner giving up of works and yet physical doing of them is the culmination of sacrifice. And by the affirmation that the result of such divine active sacrifice with an equal and desireless mind is liberation from the bondage of works. He who is satisfied with whatever gain comes to him and equal in failure and success is not bound even when he acts. When a man liberated, free from attachment, acts for sacrifice, all his action is dissolved, leaves, that is to say, no result of bondage or after impression on his free, pure, perfect, and equal soul. To these passages, we shall have to return. They are followed by a perfectly explicit and detailed interpretation of the meaning of yajna in the language of the Gita, which leaves no doubt at all about the symbolic use of the words and the psychological character of the sacrifice enjoined by this teaching. In the ancient Vedic system, there was always a double sense, physical and psychological, outward and symbolic, the exterior form of the sacrifice and the inner meaning of all its circumstances. But the secret symbolism of the ancient Vedic mystics, exact, curious, poetic, psychological, had been long forgotten by this time, and it is now replaced by another, large, general, and philosophical in the spirit of Vedanta and a later yoga. The fire of sacrifice, Agni, is no material flame, but Brahma Agni, the fire of the Brahman, or it is the Brahman God energy, inner Agni, priest of the sacrifice, into which the offering is poured. The fire is self control, or it is a purified sense action, or it is the vital energy in that discipline of the control of the vital being through the control of the breath, which is common to Raja Yoga and Hatha Yoga. Or it is a fire of self knowledge, the flame of the supreme sacrifice. the food eaten as the leavings of the sacrifices. It is explained the nectar of immortality, Amrita, left over from the offering, and here we have still something of the old Vedic symbolism, in which the Soma wine was the physical symbol of the Amrita, the immortalizing delight of a divine ecstasy won by the sacrifice, offered to the gods and drunk by men. The offering itself is whatever working of his energy, physical or psychological, is consecrated by him in action of body or action of mind to the gods, or God to the self, or to the universal powers, to one's own higher self, or to the self in mankind and in all existence.
So, this is there, and Srila has said very clearly, to these passages we shall have to return, because he is going to give a great amount of importance to this whole thing of how you can be in a spiritual consciousness and you can still be working in the physical world. There are all the other yogas, okay, Raj Yoga, Jnana Yoga, okay, and the Mayavada philosophy, Sankhya, who all say that to get the divine, get away from the physical world, because physical world is permanently a place of ignorance and perversion and suffering and evil and death. So why do you want to be here? Go up. You are the soul, not the body, mind, life. So this is a contradiction of that philosophy. Okay, you can be in a free condition and yet continue to do work in the world. And what work are you doing? Loka sangraha, loka sarva loka hite rata. You are doing for the good of humanity, and also you are helping the evolutionary forces of the divine working in the physical world. That's what is basically saying. We have got some time, so we will go through now and see whether we can, how far we can go. That this is the sense of the passage is made clear. What's he saying? Because some people take sacrifice and karma in the wrong way. Those who are doing sacrifice for getting benefits, okay, Vedism. He has used that word Vedism. So this is what he's saying, that the interpretation of Vedism is wrong. The interpretation of Vedantism is right. That's what he's pointing out. You don't do sacrifice by pouring ghee into it. It is symbolic. It is not physical. But the ones who want to do it in the Vedism sense, they are doing it in the sense of actual yajna, not symbolic yajna. Okay, you are pouring and you are also asking for benefits from the gods. So this is not what the Gita is saying. That's what Swami is pointing out. Karma does not mean pouring ghee in a fire, okay, nor your all sorts of herbs and wood pieces and all that are thrown into the fire, leaves and all. I have attended one for 1.5 hours, I remember, and that's what they do. And they go on chanting shlokas from the scriptures. But that is not what is intended, okay? That's what he said. That this is the Swami is saying that the Gita's sacrifice and karma means all work and not only work of throwing ghee in fire. And also sacrifice, yajna, is doing it as a symbolic act of offering to the divine, not the physical thing. That this is the sense of the passage is made clear in what follows by the affirmation of Loka Sangraha. Loka Sangraha, and there is another word also which he uses, the Gita uses, Sarva Loka Hite Rata. You are engaged in the good of all living creatures and in the world. So these two words confirm what is the interpretation is correct, that the Gita intends only symbolically the yajna. So Gita is not saying don't do yajna physically, but it is saying that the real meaning, certainly interpreting, the real meaning is doing symbolically sacrifice. Follows by the affirmation of Loka Sangraha as the object of works. You do works in the physical world not for yourself, but for the others. Remember, I told you those four slokas from the Sanskrit, very famous one. Okay, so I'll tell you. Paropakaraya vahanti nadya. It is for the benefit of others that the rivers flow. Paropakaraya phalanti vriksha. The trees give fruits for the benefit of others. It does not eat the fruits itself. Paropakaraya tuhanti gava. The cows don't drink their own milk. They do it for others. So the last phrase, paropakararthamidam shariram. That is the true sacrifice for the others. Lokasangraha means that you have to live for the benefit of others. So this inner giving up of works and yet physical doing of them is a culmination of sacrifice. The inner giving up of works, there is no initiation in the mind that I have to do this, I have to do that. That's the inner giving up of works. And yet physical doing of them is a culmination of sacrifice. You are inside your consciousness, you are absolutely calm, quiet, without any expectation. But you go on doing the work in the interest of humanity or of God. Okay? So that's what it means. Then, yet physical doing of them is a culmination of sacrifice. And by the affirmation that the result of such active sacrifice with an equal and desireless mind is liberation from the bondage of works. Even the Ishopanishad says that na karma lipyate nare. The works when you do, it does not necessarily give you bondage. Okay? But the others are saying, and that's largely true at the physical level, that if you do works, 90% of the time you will get attachment and you will get desire. And that is so don't do any work at all. There is a partial truth in that, but it's not the highest truth at all. Okay? He who is satisfied with whatever gain comes to him and equal in failure and success is not bound even when he acts. When a man liberated, free from attachment, acts for sacrifice, all his action is dissolved. In other words, if you do works in the physical world, there is no law of karma applying to you. When you do normal physical works with full identification with your body, mind, life, the law of karma applies to you. But if you are doing work in the physical world with your body, mind, life without attachment to body, mind, life, without being identified with them, the law of karma is negated. There is the soul will not get any fruits of your actions. That's what he's saying. In other words, to put it very bluntly, even if you steal, even if you kill, that's what he's saying, advice to Arjuna, remember. Okay? Rise to the level of the Brahman consciousness, and then what you do has no law of karma effects. Okay? The karmic law is dissolved. So, when you do it with identification with the lower, the karma law is effective, but not otherwise. When a man is liberated, free from attachment, acts for sacrifice, all his action is dissolved. Simply saying, all his action is dissolved. What is meant is that the fruits of action, the karma, is dissolved. Because what karma means that, so that's why all his action is dissolved. All his fate is dissolved. Leaves, that is to say, no result of bondage or after impression on the free, pure, perfect, and equal soul. To these passages, we shall have to return. And we also will have to return to this because it is now time. We will not be able to finish because there is another half a page more. Okay? Now he comes back to that Vedic ancient system, Vedism, he explains. So he is saying very clearly, the interpretation of the shlokas should be not yajna in the sense of Vedism, but of Vedantism. You do it for the knowledge. You do it in a symbolic significance of the word yajna. not a physical yajna for desires. Okay. They are followed by a perfectly explicit and detailed interpretation of the meaning of yajna in the language of the Gita, which leaves no doubt at all about the symbolic use of the words and the psychological character of the sacrifice enjoined by his teacher. Vedism is giving absolutely a non-symbolic language. It is saying absolutely physical interpretation of yajna. But the Gita does not mean physical interpretation at all. It's a psychological yajna, and karma includes all karma, not the Vedism karma of only throwing ghee in fire and reciting slokas, which leaves no doubt at all about the symbolic use of the words. Okay? In the ancient Vedic system, there was always a double sense of physical and psychological, outward and symbolic. That's why, if you are doing it in the right way, even the physical act of yajna has a meaning. But if you do it in the right way, it has a meaning. With full concentration on what the words are meaning, you go on doing that and so on, it becomes effective. We discussed that. Now one day, mother was also doing symbolic act. When the rain was not coming, one day she made everybody, she chose some red group girls, and they were walking with the symbol of water in the playground and going on reciting. We want the rain, we want the rain. Rain, rain, rain. We want the rain. Come again, something like that. I've forgotten the exact words. But it has an effect when you do it in the right way. The Vedic, old Vedic, symbolic as well as physical. Okay. The fire of sacrifice, Agni, is no material flame, but Brahmagni, the fire of the Brahman, or it is the Brahman word energy. The word towards, and so it is a Brahman word. It is going towards the Brahman. Inner Agni, come, come, come. Come in and sit down. I've gone a little beyond the time. That's why I was looking back all the time to see whether you have come. So, my next class is about to start. So, but basically we have covered everything. But as Srendo says, to these passages we shall have to return. Next time, we'll give a very quick resume of Vedism and Vedantism, and then we will go to the next one. Okay. So I'm making a note, Vedism and Vedantism. Okay. Au revoir, everybody. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Rangada.
Okay.
Merci beaucoup.